Hey guys, it's Libby, and today I'm going to be talking about something that I've sort of been avoiding talking about, something that people have been wanting me to talk about for a very long time, and I'm just now doing it. I've been avoiding it because some people think I shouldn't talk about it because I'm hearing and I'm not a coda. So I'm just gonna insert my disclaimer right here, right now, saying that yes, I'm hearing and not a coda, but I spent the last 2 years studying ASL interpreting in a BA program. And prior to that, I've been learning myself about ASL and deaf culture for the last maybe 5 years or so. I don't know, it's been a while, I kind of lost track. But yeah, so I'm just going to present to you my opinions and my feelings. If you feel my opinions and my feelings are invalid, that's fine, that's your opinion. You don't need to go be an asshole in the comments or anything like that though. If you've got your own opinions and feelings, you can leave them down below. I am fine with that. But again, you don't need to be an asshole towards me about it, okay? Kindness is the policy here. I don't know why some people think that anything besides kindness is acceptable, because it's not. So today I'm going to be talking about ASL versus PSE. More specifically, which one do I currently use, which one have I used in the past, etc. And which one should you learn? Because that is a very popular question I get here on my channel. So those are the two things I'll be addressing. Please stay tuned and hear me out through the video. But yeah, let us begin. So ASL stands for American Sign Language, and it is an official language used in the United States and some parts of Canada. I mentioned that it's an official language because it is. It's a language that is recognized all over the world by linguists, and it's got its own grammar, syntax, words, idioms, and so on. That puts it on the same level as English, Spanish, German, Mandarin, and so forth. That is really important to remember, that ASL is a language. Now, PSE, on the other hand, is not a language. It is Pidgin Signed English, and a Pidgin language is formed when two languages come together and you sort of like combine them, sort of like meet in the middle. It's sort of just like a communication mode, but it's not a language. Something that's very important about PSE is that it is conceptually accurate, the signs you pick. So ASL has its own grammar, like I mentioned, but PSE sort of just uses English grammar with ASL signs. And I've made a different video talking more in depth about ASL, PSE, and also C, but I'm not going to go very in depth in this video because that's not the point of this video. If you want to watch that video, I'll link it down below, and I'll also link a good source if you want to learn about them just from like reading a web page. Anyways, so PSE is not a language. It is just like a system used, a sign system. It's not a real language. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't learn it? No, not necessarily. It's not like completely worthless just because it's not a real language. But before I go into talking about what you should learn or whatever, I'm gonna talk about what my learning experience has been, my path. So first, I started teaching myself sign language online maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Again, I kind of forget when it began. It was too long ago, but I've been learning for a while, and I started off by teaching myself. And if you want to know about how I taught myself, I've got a video about that, and I will link that down below as well if you're interested. But I taught myself mainly using just sign dictionaries online, watching some videos. The main way that I helped myself learn was through music, which is why I do it on my channel now, because I think it's a great learning tool. I said that weird tool. So because I was teaching myself, I ended up learning PSE, and I wasn't completely aware of that at first. I didn't know the difference between ASL and PSE. I thought ASL signs, I'm doing ASL. I wasn't. I was doing PSE, which I came to realize maybe like a year into it or something. The reason that I was learning PSE unintentionally and then continued it intentionally was because I wasn't able to find any good resources to learn ASL. Online, I haven't found a ton of great resources. I know that LifePrint is a good resource out there, but I just felt that I wasn't gonna get everything I needed. I mean, I didn't give it a shot, so maybe I would have, but I just felt that it would be easier if I had a class or something to learn from with a teacher, like live and in person, you know. So I spent the first 3 or 4 years of my sign language learning journey doing PSE, learning PSE, simply because I did not have good resources to learn ASL from. There weren't really classes around me. My high school didn't offer it, you know, so I was kind of just doing what I had the resources to do. Now we go back 2 years ago when I started studying at Columbia College, Chicago. My major was ASL interpreting, and I began learning ASL. Like, I learned the grammar and idioms and syntax and all that kind of stuff. Like, I learned true ASL, or I began to. When I was learning ASL, my teachers were deaf, so they were native signers. They were obviously very fluent. That is what I feel is a good way to learn ASL, from a native signer, from someone who is fluent, obviously, and hopefully in like a live class setting, because again, learning online is possible and it's better than nothing, but learning in person, you can ask questions, you can understand things better. That's just my opinion. But yeah, so people ask me, well, what do you do now? Well, I've only been doing ASL, like true ASL, to the best of my knowledge, for 2 years now, about. And you know, at the beginning of that, I started an ASL 1 just because I wanted like a fresh start. I wanted to like start from the beginning. It wasn't very ASL, you know, like they start off teaching you family and numbers and the alphabet, you know, so you didn't learn very much grammar at the beginning, and I only went through 4 semesters of the program. And I did learn a good amount of grammar there, a good amount of syntax, idioms, so forth. But I wouldn't say that I'm a fluent ASL signer yet. I think that I still have a lot of work to do, obviously. I mean, you can't get fluent in a language in 2 years. I've obviously got a lot of vocabulary under my belt, but there's plenty of grammar, idioms, sort of native nuances and things that I have yet to learn, which I'm fine with. So people ask me, again, what am I signing now? Are you signing PSE or ASL? And recently in the descriptions of my videos where I like say, hey, this is my cover of da-da-da, I've been saying that it's PSE moving towards ASL, because in my mind, the way I think about it, the way I've been taught it, is that it's sort of on a spectrum as far as like the grammar and syntax go. So there's very English grammar over here, and then very ASL grammar over here. Some native deaf signers only feel that true ASL, complete ASL is acceptable, no English involved at all. So you gotta be like over here or you're not doing it right, you know? And then some people are like, some English is fine, you can be somewhere in the middle. Like, there's nothing wrong with throwing in some English grammar, because most deaf people are also fluent in English. They can read it, they can write it, they know it, you know? So, you know, they feel that being in between is fine. And then there are people who are like, complete English grammar is fine. And how do I know this? Well, from my own experience. I had like 4 or 5 different teachers who were all native signers, and they all fell somewhere on that spectrum. They weren't all like complete ASL all the way, like ASL is the only way to go. You know, I had plenty that were on that spectrum. But you know, I had one teacher who, like, you would sign something to her and she'd be like, make that more ASL. And so you'd have to think about it and make your sentence more ASL, and she'd be like, okay, good. But then I had a different teacher who signed very English, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know? It's kind of where they were comfortable, how they like to sign, and wherever on that spectrum they fell was fine, you know? So I feel that that should be the same for us hearing students. Obviously, knowing the entire spectrum, being able to sign anywhere on the spectrum to sort of be able to facilitate the best communication between you and whoever you're signing with would be great. You know, if you can sign total ASL, that's awesome. But if you can also do pretty English, if that's how the person you're signing with signs, that's also great, you know? So right now, I think that I'm somewhere in here on this spectrum of between English grammar and ASL grammar. I incorporate lots of ASL things in my videos, but there are some things that I still do kind of English, you know? Some sentences I'll throw in there that are pretty English syntax, English grammar, you know? But again, some things that are pretty ASL. And I think that's fine. You know, some people will say that's not fine. That's fine. They can feel that way. They can be on this end of the spectrum where they're like, you can only do ASL, otherwise it's bullshit. And fine, again, that's fine. But from my experience, native deaf signers fall within this spectrum, not only on one end, okay? So that's something that I just want to make clear. And if you don't feel that way, fine, that's fine. So to address the question that I get frequently, which one should I learn? The answer that I always tell people is whatever you have the resources for. You know, I did not have good resources to learn all of ASL, to understand classifiers and all the different syntaxes and morphemes and stuff. Like online, I did not feel comfortable trying to teach myself that. So I just stuck with PSE until I had gone to college and was able to formally learn ASL. But if you have resources to learn ASL, go ahead and do that. Some people tell me that they don't want to learn ASL. They like PSE. And while that's fine, it's totally okay to have your own preference on things. I think that it's really, really great and important to learn ASL because while sure, many people who are deaf or hard of hearing will understand your PSE English signing, not all of them will, or some of them might be irritated by it, or it might be a lot more work for them to understand you that way. You might want to learn ASL then, you know? I think why not know everything? Because if you know ASL and you know English, you can do PSE. You know, you can sign in English grammar. You know English, you know the ASL signs. If you know ASL, you essentially know PSE too. You know what I mean? So, you know, I encourage you to learn ASL. Obviously, I know that you may not have the resources for it. Again, I totally understand that. But if you ever get the opportunity to, I highly, highly recommend that you do. Some people ask me, where can I find a PSE class? You can't. PSE is not a language, so they don't offer classes for it. You can't really find a tutor for it or like an online class for it because it's not a language. It's just like a system, you know? So if you want to learn PSE, you essentially just have to learn ASL signs and learn like how to understand the concept of what is being said to match it with the right ASL sign. Because an example that is overused in ASL education would be run. You know, there's run like that, which is like, you know, running. There's run like this, which can mean like running water. There's run like that. You can't really see that, sorry, I'm sitting. But like a run in your tights or something. There's run like this, like compete, like in an election or something. Like run has a billion different meanings, and you can't use this one for all of them. You can't use this one for all of them, you know? So you need to know what the concept is in order to match it with your sign so that what you're signing makes sense, you know? Yeah. So I feel like I've said most of what I wanted to say. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but yeah. So which is better to learn? Whatever you've got the resources for, okay? I highly, highly recommend that you learn ASL though, if you can, because if you can do ASL, you can do PSE. And ASL is the official language here, and so I think it's a good thing to learn. One last thing that I will mention is that ASL wasn't recognized as an official language until fairly recently, like just a few decades ago, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, you know? Linguists just didn't recognize it as a real language. They're like, oh, that's just English but signed, you know? But it's not. It's its own thing. So to say that you don't want to learn ASL might come off in the wrong way because ASL has been oppressed and deaf people in general have been oppressed for such a long time that sort of refusing to learn ASL might seem a little ignorant or privileged or closed-minded or something. So I'm just gonna like throw that warning out to you because there's like a really long history of oppression that deaf people have faced and ASL as a language has faced, discrimination, all that. And so, you know, I think that appreciate the language, appreciate the community and culture, and learn ASL. Don't close your mind off to it and be like, PSE is easier because I know English, so I'm not gonna bother with ASL. Like, no. ASL is super cool. Obviously, I enjoy the language, otherwise I wouldn't be learning ASL, but I think ASL is super cool. Like, it's got a lot of really cool things in it. like classifiers, those are so cool. And if you see some native signers who are particularly talented with classifiers, it's awesome. You can look up some really cool classifier videos on YouTube and whatnot. There's this one that I was shown, I'm sure you could look it up on YouTube and find it. It was like a Transformers scene done in classifiers, and it was super fast, and the guy was so talented and like on it. It was really cool. So classifiers are awesome. Idioms are awesome. Just learning a different grammar to me is really awesome. I don't know, like I enjoyed learning Spanish. I thought it was cool to like learn how to say things in different languages and things. Like I just think it's cool. So while PSE is great and it's a way to communicate, and I don't discourage you from learning it at all, I think ASL is great too, because it's got all these cool things. Like PSE uses English grammar, you already know that, so you're kind of just learning science. But ASL has all this cool new grammar for you to learn. And I sound like a nerd right now, I know, but I think that you should give ASL a shot if you aren't thinking about it. And if you are thinking about it, awesome. Go do it. Again, I will link some videos down below that you might find helpful, some other resources you might find helpful. Yeah, so I hope this video was informative. I hope none of you guys hate me after it. I know I'm hearing, but I'm also a student. I'm learning about this stuff. So while I might not be the #1 person to talk to about it, I think that I know more than your average person out there. I don't know. So that's just my take on things. Again, you're free to feel how you want to feel. If you want to share how you feel down below, go right ahead. Just don't be mean. Don't be mean to me. Don't be mean to anyone in the comments. That's mean. I don't tolerate meanness. You can be constructive. That's fine. I know the difference between constructiveness and meanness, all right? So there's that. Have a wonderful week or weekend, night, day, whatever it is for you. Bye.